Okay, if people joining this live stream, these are some details of language design, hopefully relevant to the version 12 of Wolfram Language, which is very much closing now. Okay, so information, how to document it. Okay, let's take a look. I mean, we could have a gallery, I suppose, or we could have a gallery in the. Maybe you're going to show me this.
Yeah.
Is it in? Is it in the builds or is it only in?
It
It's
should
in the builds.
Yeah, it should be in the build. We can also take a look at the ref page. I mean, at least the version of the build I have, not all of the formatting carried over correctly, so not sure what's going on there. But yeah, so if you open up the notes, you will see a lot of notes.
Wow. Okay. Wow. It seems diligent, but
Yeah, we've tried to use the cell links to make it a little easier to navigate. So in principle, if you say, I want information about data bin, there's the cell link that will take you to more details about data bin.
Why on earth is the order here? Symbol temporal data. That's a totally random order.
Yeah, I mean, the order right now is kind of random. Symbols.
Okay, that's not good enough. I mean,
right. As it says in the agenda, don't freak out. This is a rough draft.
Okay. Fair enough. Okay, so some more rational order would be in.
Right. So I mean, one possible idea to make this not quite so long is to move these individual tables to the relevant function ref pages, and predictor function.
I think that makes more sense. I mean, I think that's what I would do here. Let's take a look at predictor function, for example. Yeah, I think you should say information of predictor function gives information on the predictor function. The following things are supported. So long as you give the generic cases like this. So the point is you can say if information of a predictor function, comma, wherever the thing is for a predictor function down here, comma, feature types. So in other words, if I said something like predict, I don't even know what I do, table n arrow n squared, n up to 10. So that will give me a predictor function, hopefully. And now I say information of percent. Okay. And if I say information of percent 60, comma, properties, why this is auto-completing in a grotesque way, I have no idea.
Yeah, I had that question. Nick, do you know where these auto-completions are coming from? Because they don't seem to make any sense.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll have to check with Tom about that.
Okay.
And also, this just produced a raft of self-test errors.
Yeah, I was noticing some notebook object errors with yesterday's build. It might be related, but I think
it's more useful to have the information in the with the function itself.
Okay.
And it probably should be the last entry, last thing. Most cases, they'll be the last thing in the function itself. Let's take a look, like predictor function. I think something is going wrong here. Look, something is going wrong with the generation of these thumbnails. That thumbnail isn't complete. See that?
Yeah.
Well, that's because they're not automatically generated. So basically, once per release, Brian goes through and regenerates them.
I see. Okay.
Is dataset one of the things that information works on?
It isn't right now. I mean, information could wrap dataset, but
I think it could. Yeah, I think that would be quite useful.
It end up being just kind of a different presentation for it. I mean, information is accepted in dataset, and will turn. You could do data set of in 60 and it would, or 61, and it would turn it into a data set format. I'm not sure about the...
No, not in a useful way. No, but I mean, I think...
right. I mean, I would think that data set, information of data set would give you some sort of summary about the data set, not just convert.
I agree. Absolutely. Yes.
I mean, I was just asking because data set
font, this font is wrong. You know that, right?
Yeah, we were making some tweaks ahead of the conference to get a couple of things put together.
Okay, so what was full data set? Just does that rather than...
That's what we had done for now, rather than having I mean, a lot of these entities are going to end up with hundreds of properties, and rather than putting them all in information.
Just make sure these fonts get fixed, okay?
Okay.
And likewise, that font isn't right either.
Yeah, I'll check Etienne.
All right. So anyway, bottom line here is the documentation is going to go in with the individual functions. And anything you were just saying about dataset, which sounded wrong to me anyway, it needs to be in the general documentation for information, except it shouldn't be there because it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, I think predictor function and classifier function are going a slightly different route because of the way they were hooked up, but I'll take a look at that.
Well, no, I'm saying should data set of information put the information into a data set or not?
I think so. I mean, it would essentially just wrap.
Okay, fine. But then information of data set does something completely different.
Yeah.
Okay. It's okay. That font is wrong again. Right? And if that was what we spec'd, the spec is wrong.
Right. I mean, I think that's pretty much the font we see in all of them.
I know. I think it's just doesn't look right.
Okay.
Maybe we can just very quickly get Jeremy Davis and
Heidi should be here. Is she? Oh. Yeah, Heidi's here. So.
Heidi. Hello, Heidi.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Yes, that is not the right font.
Okay. Can you send us a mock-up of what the font you spec'd is?
I can send you the final design.
Okay, great.
I've been using. It's in the chat.
Okay. You know, I wonder whether through some kind of not quite placebo effect, whether people can catch some virus even remotely because they hear somebody else coughing and somehow that changes their response to their immune system, which then lets a local virus in. Who knows?
You mean sort of like yawning?
Yes, right. That's contagious, yes.
Yes, or coughing at a performance, right? It's all quiet, one person coughs and suddenly 12 people are coughing.
I don't have exactly the same example, but it would follow what we're doing here, wouldn't it?
I think so. Yes, I think so. Yeah, I mean, that looks better. We just need to avoid this basically, typed input type font, right? That's the, I forget what it's called, but the code font, right? Definitely not the code font, right? You understand, Heidi?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Okay. So there's just something wrong there. So who is the person to fix this?
I'll fix it. I'll double check with Heidi on what the appropriate family is. It looks like the style we're using there doesn't explicitly give the font, so it's falling back to the code font.
Okay. Okay, fine. Okay.
Okay. Right, so this is feedback we've gotten from several internal and external users. Right, so with the old question mark, you would immediately have a documentation link via that little chevron at the end.
Which is good.
Right, and now we don't. So
Well, so why don't we have an eye? Let's use the raft metaphor and put a circled eye in here.
okay, and is that
Or a chevron there. Chevron
Right.
is a possibility too.
okay? And do we? So right when you open it up, there's a documentation guy. Do we remove that, or do we just have
Which documentation guy?
So
So if I say information of plot.
Right.
What the heck is that? Alignment point center.
Those are the options, which is another, well.
This is really weird looking. That should certainly have chevrons. Local greater than, web greater than. Okay, first point.
Right. Do we just want to move that thing to the upper right corner? Or would that...
I don't think so. I don't think we want to say local and web. I think what we want to do is just have an I up here.
Which
that would go to local. What's that?
Oh yeah, which I was saying that goes to local.
Yes.
Okay.
And in this version, I mean, obviously in the cloud, it goes to the cloud, to web. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would argue that documentation should probably be the top of this list of things here. It's really a different category of thing. And I would go right, documentation, options, attributes, and then full name.
Right. So one possibility is if we have, especially if we move documentation to be the top guy there, is that in the closed state, it's just above the fold.
That's possible.
I think the main trick there, since we have the different backgrounds, I feel like it might be a little jarring to have just
I think it's easier to just have an eye up here.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I have no objection to that.
Okay.
And in fact, that's closer to where you were just typing. So in fact, in some sense, it's better.
Okay.
Right. So here's one of which we've gotten from a few people, but it bothers me, right? So you say information and attributes. I want to know if it's hold all. And I can't because it's hidden there, but we have all this white space to the right. So I think we're probably way too aggressive.
I agree with you. You might as well use a few more.
And I also don't know why read protected was moved to the front. I mean, if you do...
That just seems completely nonsensy, wrong.
Yeah, we moved it to the front. Some of the spacing has changed here, but we moved it to the front because when we wanted, if it was in the collapsed form and read protected, you to see that it was read protected. So that's why it's not showing definitions. But I think
that's irrelevant. Again, nobody's going to understand that.
Yeah.
Just alphabetize those.
Okay.
And if they're just three of them, just put them out there. Yeah, and this shouldn't stay saying ... 3 total, right? When you open it, it should just list them all. Okay. And if there's a ... it's at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I think, I mean, I agree that the ... is completely wrong. I'm a bit more ambivalent about having the total there, because when you open that up, it might still be nice to remember, oh, I'm looking at a column of 63 things.
Yeah, I agree with you. But then why isn't it at the bottom?
Oh, I see, at the bottom. Yeah, that would work.
I mean, it could go under the options potentially. I mean, on the left-hand side there.
Yes.
And
I'm wondering about where the opener is. I mean, should it be...
The opener is in an obscure place. Honestly, all of these things people will figure out.
I was wondering if we wanted to move the opener to the left column with the options, so that so that it lines up better with When you open up the option.
No, I understand where it says options greater than.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's not a terrible idea. It's certainly a bit weird here where you've got the indent there associated with that opener. It seems wrong.
Yeah, why aren't those all in a column?
Well, because of that weird opener. It's probably got lots of weird code to just make that happen.
It's not. It's Nick. That's not just a standard opener view.
It's a opener view with a custom icon there. I mean, originally we modeled it off of what was in system information, but that has left aligned columns. I mean, the opener is to the left of the property name, and everything explodes below it. But when we shifted over the design, we wanted it to be closer to the list of options or the list of elements. But I do think, it doesn't need to be taking up space on the first line there.
Right, so listen, I agree. Let's try and make, Heidi, could you make a mock-up of what this would look like where there's a greater than sign after the attributes and after the options? Here, got it? So moving it over to the left. Do you understand what I'm saying, Heidi?
Greater than sign after the options.
Right, you're moving the greater than sign from the right-hand side here to the left-hand side. So it says options greater than, right? When you press that opener, then this right-hand side will open. See what I'm saying?
Not really. Before
Okay,
the colon?
all right. Yes, before the colon.
Do we throw the colon away then?
Yeah, that I would say it's probably instead of the colon.
Oh, that's going to look terrible.
Right, but I think it would be weird if there's something in between.
Yeah, by the way, there's a point made on the live stream. This should all be clickable. This whole bottom bar should be clickable. You shouldn't have to hit the caret.
Okay, yeah, that should be easy to do.
Okay. Do we need to get Jeremy to get an idea about another idea about this, where this opener should be? Let's
post it without the.
Okay, let's see it. Yeah. What? This is the same thing. I don't understand. But what are you showing us here?
I haven't. I'm just posting it now.
Okay. 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 Somebody's asking why aren't possible the default values shown the options, because we don't have that information very cleanly. It's used for autocomplete to some extent, but many of these things you can feed in an arbitrary expression. Another suggestion, when there are 163 options, maybe it's more sensible to put them in a scrollable pane. Any thoughts about that? I don't think that's correct. I never like scrollable panes. It's just a question of, the whole page is scrollable, just scroll it.
Yeah, right. Sometimes if we have a super long expression that can't be like a huge fraction or something that can't line break, then we might create a horizontally scrollable pane rather than flying off the edge of your notebook. But
so that doesn't make any sense to me what I just did, because what do you do with attributes in that case?
What? You do the same thing.
Same thing. So
yes,
okay.
yes. Okay, so show the other state also. I think this actually looks better than I expected it to.
Yeah, although
it still needs a bit more.
What's that?
Alignment point isn't aligned with system plot. And
yeah, it obviously needs to be, right?
The other possibility for like options and attributes is not to use a scrollable pane, but to do multi-column to the extent that it's possible.
No, I wouldn't bother. I would not bother. I think that's overly precious, and I think it's going to be confusing. I think the only issue is with this.
Right. I mean, I think the other, well, another idea which just occurred to me is maybe the little opener is next to the 63 total.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another possibility.
And maybe
Someone on the live stream is correctly pointing out that having this microscopic click target, but I mean, the whole options thing can be clickable, so it's not such a microscopic target.
So Itai, the downside with putting the opener after the 63 total is that when you open it, then where does it go?
Yeah, it's wrong. You can't do that. It's got to stay in the same place.
Can you refresh it?
Yes. I don't think that looks bad.
No,
I mean,
it's not
except
bad.
you got to get rid of these. When you open, you got to get rid of those. And also they should be in gray. The ... and the 63 total should be in gray.
It is in gray.
Yeah, they do look.
The ... doesn't look gray to me.
Well, I can't tell that over Zoom, but the 63 total certainly is.
Yeah, right. Hey, did Jeremy just join us?
Yeah, I see him here. He maybe.
I was on mute. Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, so we're talking about how to deal with. This was the original form here with the colon and then the greater than sign, proposing this.
Okay. Yeah. I suppose it's a little weird to lose the colon just because there's an arrow there, but I see why you need to. Do we need the colon at all? I mean, it must feel
Try
better.
it without.
Yeah.
Try it without.
Seems better without.
Okay. And somebody on the live stream is suggesting make the 63 total the opener. That won't work because it moves. And also, when you press it, it'll be gone. You need a predictable place to click. But then, so the idea would be the whole options greater than would be clickable, right?
Yeah.
And this would also be clickable. I think this will work.
Want to refresh one more time?
Yep. It's okay. I mean, you should have the 63 total or whatever there. And by the way, in this documentation, surely you should have some separator between the local and web, either a center dot or a vertical bar. Otherwise, you just read local web, which is
Well, yeah,
wrong.
I'd never seen that before today. So, yeah.
Okay. Okay, so we're going documentation, options, attributes, full name, correct?
Yeah, with the definitions before that for functions that do have them exposed. So if I write a function that has that's
Yes,
not
but then it won't have documentation. If it has definitions, or will it have? Yes, it will have documentation, won't it?
it's possible. I mean,
Okay, then put definitions after documentation.
Okay.
If it has both. Okay. All right, are we on to the next thing? Wasting a lot, presumably a vertical scale when contexts are closed.
Right. So
Okay.
here's a query which generates a lot of contexts. And
Yeah, well, that's clearly wrong. Heidi, do you want to comment on that? Is this according to your spec or not?
No.
Okay.
It's a ton of space. Just huge.
Well,
Right.
could you open up a few just to, because it probably doesn't look as bad open. Is that still too much, Heidi? Yeah, it does look like it's way too much, even when
I
open.
sent it. The design is on that first link in the chat that we looked at earlier.
Okay, so yeah, that does seem like it's.
It just seems wrong. So.
Yeah, so I think if you go back to her first link, it's definitely.
By the way, there's no hover on this, and there should be a hover on these things that have openers. There should be a hover. Okay, makes sense, guys. Heidi.
Yep.
Nick.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, Nick, do you know
Now,
what's going wrong with the spacing here? Like, you.
I was making some tweaks to it at the last minute to try and fix some of the spacing in the open state, and I think we just lost track of the
Okay.
closed
All
state.
right. No
now
matter.
we were using source code. Was that going to be wrong for the function names?
We were previously, and then we changed away from it in the last spec. The last
I think
time-
you weren't in that meeting, Heidi, but yeah, we went back to source sans.
Okay.
Although the context names aren't in source sans, that looks like Arial.
They don't look that wonderful.
Yeah, I think it's just a bug. It's
Yeah, it looks like the style is just missing that declaration, so it's falling back.
Okay. All right. Onward. Other string patterns.
Right. So names and the old information support string patterns and regular expressions. I think Nick may have fixed the missing of string patterns.
So information, the question is whether information, I had no idea that it supported some of those things, but I mean, information of plot star, that seemed to work.
Yep. But if you
Okay.
did the plot, tilde, blank sequence, then we've lost that. And that's something that used to work. Right. So if you do names with that, that should give you a list of things.
Right, I understand. That should work.
Right. And it's not documented. I think that's probably a documentation bug.
Yes, I agree. Well, whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think the case for string expression is pretty clear. The question about blank sequence or regular expression is whether we want information to be looking up symbol names or potentially giving information about either the pattern or the regular expression.
Yeah, I agree. I think that this is not an obvious case. I think the string name, plot star, that should just work. String patterns should work. I mean, string patterns as in that sense, a string that is a pattern.
Yeah.
Right, should work. And similarly, the string expression form like this should work. Okay, I wouldn't necessarily make the explicit symbolic regular expression work at this time. I can imagine we'll need that for something else.
But what's the difference between a string expression and a regular expression?
Well, it's syntactically different.
Not really, because every regular expression.
I know.
Part of
Semantically, it's the same, right? Semantically, it's exactly the same. But my point is that we can distinguish it here, right? We can distinguish that from regular expression of this. We don't have to make the two things work the same way. And I don't think we should right now. Maybe we will later, but I think we shouldn't do that right now because we may need information of a regular expression to do something. Make sense?
Yeah, I'm just not understanding, because you could make the same argument had you used the full form of string expression instead of saying tilde tilde something or other.
Yes, you
And
could,
so-
but I don't think it's correct because I think look. It may very well be we don't need to use information regular expression for anything. In which case, in the next version, we can change this to work in the same way as it does with the naked string. Okay, I just think it is not necessary to support this, and I don't think we should support it initially, just in case we need it to mean something different.
Okay, well, what about names?
Names, if names does this right now, names should go on doing it.
Okay.
But you're saying it doesn't document it, so don't document that case. Well, actually, what it did is very weird. What did it just do there?
Well, you used an incorrect regular expression. You meant dot star.
That was a correct regular expression. You said
Well, he
followed
meant-
by any number, including 0 of L's.
Yeah, okay, fine.
Right. If you put a dot star there, then it will do what you expected.
Yep. But we never documented this, you're saying?
We did not. We didn't document the fact that it works with string expressions either.
Really?
Yes.
Well, I've known that for 30 years, but I never tried using it with regular expression. Oh, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe we should just have this. We should just document it and not allow the possibility of information of a regular expression to do something.
That's my inclination as well.
All right, let's do that, I guess. Fine.
Is that maybe a use for verbatim or something, or inactive, or not
Yes, we
inactive?
certainly could do that verbatim. If we needed to back out, I suppose we could do that. All right. Okay, I think that was it for that section.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, so graphic design and other people related to information can depart.
All right, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. All right, so I started annotating everything, and then I decided, okay, this is ridiculous, and you'll find a whole bunch of tentative notes where I basically holistically rewrite all the notes for get.
Okay. And so this is, remind me what the context of this is.
So the context is that we added a new option, and I was looking at the existing documentation and decided it's people have added things,
Random gunk,
and so we should just rewrite it and make it make sense.
Okay, what is group / I don't understand that.
So if you have to read the note above it, right? So if you do a package group backtick package, which I think is basically how we were documenting this.
Okay, I just don't like the name group.
Okay.
Is it a directory?
Yes.
Then let's call it that.
Okay.
I mean, I would say, and let's not commit that it's a package, for goodness sake. Well, I guess it has to be a package. Well, or file. We could just call it file.
Well, no, it's not. Look at the table. It's not a file in most cases.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm not necessarily a fan of directory, because the idea is that you've got a hierarchical package, right? So you've got the base name of the package and then something more specific with a backtick in between.
Well, then call it
something
path.
more specific too.
Then call it path.
We could call it package backtick subpackage if we wanted to, or that's not.
Okay, let's understand what you're talking about here. So the first thing is a table that says it searches for. Wait a minute. What name is? I'm very confused. If you say less than name.
Okay, so depends on what name is. That's the whole point. So
Yeah.
if name is of the form context backtick subcontext.
What if it's just of the form context backtick?
Then it will just ignore the leading group slash.
What do you mean? I'm sorry.
Right. So the point is that except for the last context, leading contexts are assumed to be defining a directory structure, and then the final subcontext is defining the package to look up, which may be in any of several different forms.
All right. Okay. So look, documentation-wise, I think the thing to do is first have a table that says, basically to just say, process this name, right? Process this name to find the file to read. Okay. I mean, roughly, I'll just write something. For a name, something like, given the name, well, I'm writing it poorly. And I'm not sure whether we want to use the term package here. Given the name package, get will search for the following, basically. And then you give it the MX file, the this, the that, the other.
So well, let's... Okay, so why don't we delete that and go back to the table?
Well, no, because I'm saying I think that what it should have is a table. Before you get to the subtable here, you should have a first table that just lists without the subpackage business.
Well, which would be that entire table just without the group.
Yes, exactly.
Well,
And then say,
right. So, but Stephen, my point is, this is where we want to be rewriting. I don't think we want to be rewriting the old stuff.
no, I agree. I agree.
So,
I
right, so
agree.
If you,
I can delete that, but I'm just saying. Okay, so you're saying where are you restarting?
well, with the first tentative note is where I'm restarting.
Okay, so all of this is going away.
Yes.
Everything.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay. Including get of local object and things. That's a different thing.
Yes.
Oh, I see. You're putting them at the bottom there. Okay.
I was reordering so many of them, it just made sense to start.
Okay. All right. Fine. Okay. So what I'm suggesting is.
Right. So if you want to break this into two notes, where for a name of the form context backtick, get will
that's a
by
good idea.
search, and then have context, no group slash, just context.
Right. So what I'm suggesting then, for name of the form context backtick, yeah, I like this. Then this just becomes context.mx.
Yep, and
then we can fix these up.
Right, I can fix the remaining guys. And then we have a second note for context backtick subcontext.
Yes.
The process will be, we'll search for, we'll use
for a name of the form subcontext backtick context. No. Well, it's now path backtick context.
I see.
Get will search for files of the form path / context ... Is that roughly right?
That's roughly right.
Okay, we can fix fix it more exactly. If name is the name of a file.
Right. So if you say get, foo.m.
Yeah, okay. God. That's totally weird. I didn't even know you could get to that page anymore. I think we should list out I think we should list out something here. That's
Okay.
really hostile to go. That looks pretty good.
Okay.
All right. Should we go on to the next thing?
Sure.
So one other comment, Itai, is that presumably that table should be added to the documentation for find file at the same time, once it gets cleaned up.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, and in fact, one of the things I've added is a properties and relations example between get and find file, pointing out that they use the same resolution mechanism.
Okay, character encoding.
Right. So this is in particular about Unicode.
Which is never a character encoding anyway, and it's quite crazy here.
Exactly. And so we listed. I mean, we need to include it at least in the. I know maybe there are ways around this, but I think we do want it because there are places where like two characters where you need it. But what it means varies from function to function. So I think rather than sort of being here in the this particular interpretation, I think is actually only true in export. In the export family of functions. It's not true when you're writing.
Okay, so I've got another suggestion. Is it the case? Should it not be a symbolic form instead of Unicode? I mean, if it was like automatic or all or something like this, or does that not work? I mean, character encoding. Explain to me what Unicode actually is. What the Unicode character encoding actually is. Okay,
so that depends on function to varies from function to function. In two-character code and from character code, it means map between characters and raw Unicode code points. So integers between 0 and 1 million something or other.
That's extremely confusing. That becomes an 8. Okay, 950 is a zeta. Okay, fine. Okay, right. So there's a zeta. Now, if I say from character code of that, comma, character encoding, arrow.
It's just an argument. It's not an option.
Okay. Probably should
so
support
if you do the string Unicode there, you'll get the same thing.
Right, but if I say zap dingbats, I'll get garbage. No, I don't get garbage.
Because zap dingbats is an 8-bit encoding. So if you did like
why doesn't it give an error? If it's bigger than the zap dingbat size, it should from character code should surely give an error in that case.
We possibly could make that happen. I'm sure that would break many things. So, but yes, that is a decision to be sort of as nice as you can many years ago, and I don't know what would be the consequences of changing that.
Maybe we should investigate, but not for the 12.0 release.
Exactly. Definitely not for 12. I'm happy to investigate that.
Okay.
Yeah, UTF-8 would have given a message.
It would have given a message, and then it would have fallen back to. Well, you'd need to increase it a bit more, make it like 150.
Oh, it didn't give it. I guess it just got confused because it was so big. If you give it something invalid, like
try 150 instead of 10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So, yes, I think. Well, I don't know exactly what it's doing.
It's issuing the message and then doing the best that it can, which is probably treating it as the code point.
Yeah, as ISO 88591 is basically what it's doing. Right, but I know what it's doing. It's if you get an invalid byte sequence, it'll complain, and this is only because with UTF-8, you can actually tell whether a sequence of bytes is valid or not. And I suppose once you get above a byte, then it's just ignoring it.
Right, because it's not a UTF-8, not plausibly UTF-8.
Right.
Okay. So explain to me Unicode here.
Right. So Unicode is basically the default argument. So.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. But I mean, yes, okay, right. I understand. It's the raw encoding. It's the thing that is, in some sense. Actually, I have no idea. We could imagine something. Many of these encodings here happen to be 8-bit encodings, right?
Right.
But they don't necessarily have to be 8-bit encodings. I don't even know whether they are always 8-bit encodings. I mean, EUC can't be an 8-bit encoding.
No, it's a variable length of 8 or 16-bit encoding.
And what about shift gist? That's another crazy one, right?
Exactly, same thing.
Okay.
Right. So we have.
Does anybody use those things anymore?
I think there is a small but non-zero usage of it in East Asia.
Okay. Hasn't all switched to Unicode?
Yeah, I mean, UTF-8 is now a very large percentage of what's out there.
Yes.
And even things like UTF-16 and UTF-32 are, which are actually character encodings that should be here somewhere.
Okay, so we should add those to this table.
Right. Well, we don't have those yet, which is
okay. Okay, but those are things whose target is 16 bits and so on.
Right.
Okay. So what's your point about documenting Unicode?
Right. So my point is, in from character code and similar sorts of functions, it basically means, map between integers, 21-bit integers and characters. In export, what it means is use what would have been called UCS2. So basically, big endian UCS2. So 2 bytes per character, big endian. You use it as a raw on a raw output stream. What it means is use 1 byte if you're less than 256. Use 2 bytes if you're between.
Okay, let me make a suggestion. Why don't we break this into multiple, whatever it was, UCS2 or whatever you're calling it? Why don't we have that be a character encoding here, and have that be the thing that's used for export? And then the default case for from character code, which is the 1 argument form, barely needs to be named. In other words, we split Unicode. We perhaps deprecate the name Unicode and replace it with these various UCS, whatever you called it.
Yeah. Let me think about that. So I agree that right. Okay. I'm not sure we want to completely obsolete Unicode.
Well, we don't have to. We don't have to. But I mean, does it mean something?
But yes, yeah. I agree that certainly export can't continue what it's doing now that we support things beyond the multilingual plane.
Yeah. Well, also, but I mean, the big endian, little endian thing, being able to parameterize that for export seems highly useful.
Right, and it takes a byte order option.
Oh, it does already.
Okay. I'm pretty sure that's true, but I'd have to double check that. That actually may be ignored in export.
Okay. Does from character code take a byte order option? I don't think so, because it's just taking integers, right? And it's an integer is an integer. It doesn't care how it's encoded.
Correct.
It's only like read binary read, binary read and import and things that care about the encoding order.
Correct.
Okay.
Right. So, for example, mathlink streams don't care because they're always just using mathlink to transport the actual characters.
Yep.
Really when you're directly writing the file.
No, I understand. To somebody else's external, externally handleable file.
Right.
Okay. So what do we remain to figure out with this Unicode thing? But why don't we think through, but not here, what it means to just change the name of the one in import and export. Okay. And in the case of character encoding, we can have it be, for now, the sort of the name that means just turn it into that integer.
Right. So.
But I agree with you that we're going to need the UCS, whatever it was.
UCS2.
UCS2. Encoding listed in the $character encoding list here.
Yep. Right. I guess so. Right. So do we just change the description here? I was thinking maybe we split Unicode out from this table and just have a note about Unicode.
I think we leave it in here, and we could say paren for. Yeah, we just leave it. With the +1 byte encoding, we just say something like.
Right, and I guess the other point is right. It's no longer 16-bit Unicodes, right? It's now 21-bit Unicode.
Right. So I think we just say. What is the correct description for here?
Well, that sort of it depends on what function is consuming it, but the closest, I guess, the closest would be raw 21-bit Unicode code points, if we wanted to do that.
All right. Okay.
Um,
But why is it 21-bit? I mean, look, you're right. Let's leave it out of this table. Let's leave it as a thing that still works, but let's put in UCS2 and whatever else is relevant in this table.
okay.
And then the one argument form, we just have to say, the one argument form for 2-character code, we have to independently document that. Let me just
I
see
think
what it
we
says.
already do.
Why does this not? Where is the raft? The raft is gone. Oh boy. I don't know who's project managing here.
Sure. I
Okay.
will report it.
Okay. So
It
you
floated
understand
away.
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
The character with integer code, blah, blah, blah. All right.
So you see there's a modified in 12 there where it's now 1 million and change instead of 65,535.
That's cool.
Right, and that actually I also need to update a note on dollar character encoding about the fact that there's now a backslash pipe in addition to a backslash colon.
What does backslash pipe mean?
That's for six hex digits Unicode instead of 4 hex digits because
Wow, most
we've gone
exotic.
outside of the basic multilingual plane.
Is 21 bits sufficient for everything that people have currently encoded? I thought it went to 32 bits.
Nope.
No, it's only 3 bytes.
Yeah, and they I mean,
Us-
who knows? At the rate they're
Making emojis. Yeah, right.
we might run out, but
Right, but they might have to register, one of those custom emojis for every human on the planet.
yes. But I think they made some sort of decision.
Emoji treaty?
Well, I don't.
Unicode has a limit on how many they're going to allow for total characters.
Oh my God! I see some tremendous, I don't even know where you go to appeal I mean, I remember when Unicode was first being developed, and Korea had all kinds of issues about whether they were going to have enough code points, and there were some other countries that didn't make it into the plain zero Unicode.
Okay.
But okay, I don't even know what.
But in answer to your question, there are currently 137,000 and some number actual 137,439 characters out of the 1.1 million. So I guess they feel like they have breathing space for.
Really? So it only went up from the 60,000 to 140,000. I thought they'd added Babylonian cuneiform and stuff like this. That didn't take up very much.
Guess not, right? I mean, if you think about it, I mean, how many Babylonian cuneiform? I mean, let's even say that's 1,000, right?
Yeah, fair enough. It's nothing, right? So basically, the world is being, it's being deluged in emojis.
Yes. In fact, there was a very depressing article about a year ago in the New York Times about how people with very small language communities, their characters are being delayed because of the craze over emoji.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing that. Yeah, well, there was this kid at the summer camp this year who did this mapping between sentiments of Twitter, of tweets, and the emoji they contained to find out which emoji were the happiest and saddest emoji. That was, yeah. There's somehow we're going back to some kind of hieroglyphic form. Okay, let's go back to the failure function here. So what's the issue with failure here?
So there was And I'm sorry I haven't fully paged this in.
Right. Listen, is this an urgent thing right now? Or
this is not an urgent. Neither of these is urgent. So,
Okay.
and since we're both sick, if you want to wrap up, I think.
Yeah, I think we should wrap up. I do want to comment that delete missing. Somebody's asking about delete failure versus delete missing. I had not realized that delete missing. So here's an interesting case of delete missing. Okay, so let's say we have let's say missing. Oops, I don't want that. Okay, so if we do this, right, we know what delete missing is going to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say we do this. Okay, so I claim that there is a worthwhile default operation here that delete missing should delete. So delete missing will do nothing here, right? I claim that it should delete every first level item that contains, well, how many levels?
Well, it has. I mean, it has a argument. It has a level spec to allow you to select that.
Okay, well, let's see what this does, because I don't think if I go down to level 2 here, yeah, it's going to do that.
Right, and so
you want 1,2.
Okay. The question is, should it do that by default? If you
At
just
this
give
point, probably not for backward compatibility.
Yeah, you might be right.
Well, right, and I guess I mean
my preference would be that we add another, a second delete missing function that has that behavior.
This is not for this meeting. Let's figure it out another time. Okay, let's put it on the agenda. You go ahead.
Just one comment. I think this may depend on the function it's adding. For example, if we find the lead missing acting on geoposition, obviously in geoposition it has to do this because we cannot just remove the latitude and leave a longitude. Or in time series, we cannot just leave one value of the pair. But in the array, I think this is doing the right thing right now.
Okay, fair enough. Well, but let's check that it does the right thing for geopositions and so on.
Right. It's not even implemented, but once I implemented it, I should do that. It removed the whole point.
Okay.
So Jose, you're saying you're going to teach delete missing how to work directly on geoposition?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. Yeah, it either has to gulp, it either has to kill the whole geoposition or not. It can't leave an incorrect structure.
Exactly.
Right. Well, and it doesn't by default, right? is sort of the point.
No, that's correct. Right. But if there's a partial missing,
right, and then and of course the question is, what is the right? The question is, what is it's not, I would claim it's not a priori obvious that if you have a list of things that you should consider them independent vectors.
Yeah, I get it. You're right, Itai. You're right.
Right. And for Jose's consideration, even within geoposition, so if you have latitude and longitude and the elevation is missing, do you necessarily?
I mean, this case, you will have already generated a message, so it's a pretty pathological case.
Yes, but so yes, we have discussed in other times whether we should allow this situation and just let other functions avoid that point. I'm thinking of the case in which we have an array of points, so a list of points, not a single point. Because in this case, I mean, what do we return?
I get it. Well, you're saying delete missing if you do it, okay, it will generate an error, but then
No, not necessarily. I mean, missing is not supported in geoposition right now. We could support it and then not give message.
I see.
I mean, and like in geogrid position, that sort of thing arises naturally.
Right.
Yeah, so you have points all around the world and you use a projection that only shows one hemisphere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Then
this is a discussion of the packing errors and things like that.
Yeah.
No offense, guys, but I think I need to go make myself a cup of tea.
Okay. By the way, the question on the live stream is about delete failure, and I don't think that makes as much sense. I mean, if you have a list of what's that?
We have a delete failure.
We do not have a delete failure. The question is whether we should. I don't think that's such a common case as delete missing. Maybe I'm wrong. That you go and do, you try and connect to a bunch of. See, missing doesn't give error messages, whereas failure tends to, I think.
Right. I guess my initial instinct is that if you have failure, you have an actual error condition.
Yes.
And if all you want to do is, delete failure, remove the failure and dollar fails, then you can use delete if you really need to. Whereas missing is not an error condition, but maybe you need to clean up.
All right, I agree. Okay,
I'll just say that there are looks like a fair number of cases in the source code where people have done delete cases of whatever comma dollar failed.
Okay.
Well, we can look at that.
All right.
All right.
A comment from the live stream suggests that chicken curry is good for colds.
All right. I'll see. That sounds like a good, fine suggestion.
All right. Thanks all.
Bye.
Yep.
Okay. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.